The following documentary contains scenes that may be disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Two out of 3 women in Papua New Guinea face violence. Women are 5 times more likely to be victimized at home than on the streets. Unfortunately, many assaults within the family setting are not reported. Many of the survivors would rather seek assistance from family. For a survivor of violence, accessing help, safety, and justice may seem overwhelming. The needs of a survivor are so complex that one organization cannot meet all of them. Medical treatment, a safe place, emotional support, police protection, legal assistance, repatriation, reintegration. That is why there is the referral mechanism, pathways to meet these needs. An institutionalized, coordinated response to provide comprehensive support. Partners like government departments and agencies, women's organizations, community organizations, faith-based organizations, medical institutions come together. The survivor is at the center of it all. There are various service providers across Papua New Guinea assisting a survivor. The family support centers that were introduced specifically by the health sector to give medical care. The Family and Sexual Violence Unit, which provides a safe and comfortable environment for people to lodge family and sexual violence complaints. Safe houses that offer temporary refuge for women and children fleeing from violence. Counseling in the way of creating a two-way relationship delivered at a crisis point in the survivor's life. And legal assistance with matters of divorce, maintenance, custody, interim protection orders, and protection orders. A survivor can enter the referral pathways at any of the services. There is no single entry point. Every service is an entry point to the referral pathways. These are just some avenues of help available to a survivor of family and sexual violence. Behind the scenes, the coordination and collaboration between the complex web of agencies is the direct result of 20 years of planning, strategizing, and executing policies.
Yeah, like the referral pathway was never heard of before. We came up with a referral pathway, but we didn't have money to do that. Because the original idea was we have a service where everybody will go, everything is in one place. And so the basic idea then was, what can police offer? What can health offer? So the referral pathway was created because we couldn't provide service at one place. But the person can be moved and services are provided where they can be provided.
The Consultative Implementation and Monitoring Council's Family and Sexual Violence Action Committee A peak national body has been instrumental in facilitating dialogue and consultation between government, private sector, and the community.
The Family and Sexual Violence Action Committee came about around the year 2000 in response to citizens of this country on the increase in gender-based violence and family and sexual violence. Our mandate is looking at addressing or reducing the occurrence and suffering caused by family and sexual violence, and also looking at increasing access to support services for survivors. We have the service provision, which is chaired by the Health Department representative, and it's made up of those who provide direct services to survivors of family and sexual violence. And we have some key members in the police, health, the welfare, courts, counseling.
From ensuring networking between partner agencies through workshops like these and keeping regular stock of who is doing what, to providing avenues for coordinated services with the survivor in mind. And prevention programs such as these to strengthen community-level response. The CIMC FSVAC has been actively creating a space for change in Papua New Guinea.
I am a child. I have rights.
We support where we can agencies that need capacity building, and we put a lot of effort towards developing legal awareness material to meet the needs of the community, and we do a lot of information sharing on laws, and we support referral pathway partners, especially the services, to understand their roles and to be able to connect to other services. At the end of the day, it's about the needs of the survivor.
Multisectoral approach was seen as a very important issue because of cross-gender issues that were at play when you're experiencing violence. Not one person can address the problem. Like if you're going to assist a woman to get out of the violent situation, she will need economic assistance. She will need skills training to have a job or to sell on the street so that she could survive. We needed NGOs to come on board because they can reach out to a lot more people to advocate and do these things, provide services. It's not just one person's role that we need to look at. We need to look at how everybody could contribute.
The development of a survivor and advocate toolkit is a game changer, with information being compressed to bite-sized and easily digestible forms.
There are services that are available to meet those needs of the survivor. Very recently in 2016-2017, we had our partner agencies asking us to demonstrate what the referral pathway could look like in pictures. With the support of the law and justice sector, everyone came together and gave their views and their feedback. And it's also the idea of access to justice and what it means to individuals and what it means to survivors. And we were able to develop this toolkit with a trainer's manual that could assist advocates to be able to advocate to survivors of violence in terms of holding their hand, helping them to navigate the referral pathway and accessing justice.
Family support centers like this one in Port Moresby provide critical support to survivors. Integrated into hospitals, family support centers are dedicated safe spaces for women and children.
So first beginning girl and boy, second girl and boy.
Family Support Center is a clinic that is set up in a safe location within a hospital. So basically it's set up to provide immediate medical and psychosocial assistance to survivors of gender-based violence. Survivors should come to a family support center immediately following a physical attack or is at risk of being attacked physically or sexually. they should come immediately.
She's a police too.
If the person that is interviewing the patient finds out that they are severely or really traumatized, that they need to see a counselor first, then they go to a counselor. If the survivor is badly injured, then they will have to receive medical treatment first. This is an enclosed place, more private, and they feel much comfortable because they have seats in here, they have toilets, they have bathrooms, kitchen. We also provide food for them. Here they feel much safer. And also one thing I find a lot of patients appreciate is the free service that we provide. Counseling, all the medicines that we give, medical reports are all free of charge.
Daily we receive patients, and they are all gender-based violence cases. They come with injuries, they come with sexual violence, they come with child sexual violence. These are the cases presented at Family Support Center. We have a coding system. One is an emergency with an injury that needs to be seen quickly and be treated as soon as possible. Two, it tells me there is a case who has been raped, and that is within 72 hours, which is 3 days. By the time it reaches over 72 hours, we cannot start the post-exposure prophylaxis treatment. So we have to work quickly within the limited time. It is very important for survivors because they are coming purposely for help. They want us to treat them medically. Also, we do write the medical reports for every survivor that has been seen here. And this medical report is being picked by a police, and the justice comes in.
80% of their cases are related to sexual violence and often involving children. But the primary victims of family and sexual violence are women. Trauma counseling by social workers becomes essential to emotionally stabilize them.
We have seen children coming in really traumatized, and when they go straight to medical room, they don't want to talk. They don't want to be interviewed. They don't want to be, examined. So they have to come to child counseling first. They have to be stabilized psychologically so that they can be able to, control their emotions and make right decisions for themselves. So when they go into medical, room for examination and treatment, willingly they tell their story and they accept to be examined.
Family support centers also have very strong linkages with child protection officers, police, safe houses, and Office of Public Prosecution.
Our medical report is the significant part of our whole fight because they're the ones that give the evidence. The FSC has to work with service providers. We have what we call high-risk cases. We can pick up the phone and say we have a woman who is scared to go home, and one of our service providers, the refuge homes, will take it. We have the police who come in and they will protect her, So we work very well with them, and what I'm happy about is that we speak the same language, in that we want to protect the survivor. A survivor is never alone. Yeah, I've got a survivor now, and I've told her, you're not alone. You have me, my team, and everyone else in NCD. We'll do the best, but it'll be for what you want, not what we want, because it's about the survivor, it's not about us. Yeah.
Often, a survivor needs a temporary sanctuary, a safe place for her and the children to escape the threat of violence. That's where safe houses become vital service providers. Free of charge, they give refuge to survivors who have suffered from physical, sexual, mental, and emotional violence.
So the safe house plays a very important role in the referral pathways because where you have survivors going and accessing medical care, they are unable to go back to the home where the violence is or the perpetrator is. They are unable to also remain at the police station if they go to get a protection order. And this is where the shelters come in, a safe place that they can be at whilst their case is being worked on by the different stakeholders within the pathway. And many of the service providers within the referral pathways rely on the shelters that are there because they know that the client is safe whilst they can carry on with the investigations, and there's no intimidation or manipulation by the perpetrator or other people who have an interest in the case. In places where there are no shelters or there are no safe houses, a survivor can seek the nearest pastor's house, community leader's house. If there is a rural police lockup there set up, even another friend or relative's home, as long as they are away from the home where the violence has happened and they can get away from the perpetrator. Anywhere within the community that they see is safe for them, that's the best place that they can go to.
Some safe houses offer toiletries, clothing, and 1 meal a day as these women find a peaceful place to make decisions about their future course of action. Children have a play area and a learning center, so they remain engaged. Depending on the location and the safe house itself, the services differ. There are minimum standards and guidelines for safe houses for survivors that have been created by CIMC FSVAC in collaboration with partners. More work is needed to institutionalize and legislate for the important community support.
So women who flee to the safe houses sometimes go alone, sometimes they manage to take their children with them. Now, the children are also catered for whilst at the shelter. They may receive child counseling services. They might also be in need of medical care. So whatever support is given to the mom, the kids are also considered during that time, and they are given the care and support that they need.
Beyond a crisis accommodation, a safe house also connects the survivor to legal services, medical assistance, or helps with the paperwork for a protection or interim protection order.
That's the most convenient place a woman can go to because they get counseling, they get referred to courts, they get police protection. All those things are provided at the safe house. They get fed and they can bring their children with them. Though there are rules that not all the children, but at least a woman can run away. It's a place to go. We didn't have those things before, but now we have them. There aren't many, but at least it's starting.
There is also a push to provide emotional and psychological support to the women with regular counseling and spiritual sessions. Some safe houses may also help a survivor become economically empowered through life skill programs. While major hubs like Port Moresby and Lae are fortunate to have shelters and safe houses, these services haven't yet trickled down to the scattered population of Papua New Guinea. Across Papua New Guinea, 46 family and sexual violence units serve as entry points for survivors, often the first venue for assistance. Established in 2008, the FSVUs, as they are commonly called, are an important addition to Papua New Guinea's response strategy. They come under the Royal Papua New Guinea Constabulary. These units are designated places for survivors to report offences, initiate interim protection orders, and be referred to other agencies. Superintendent Delilah Sendeka leads the FSVU program nationally, the first woman to do so.
Survivors, they can have access to our FSVU by going to any police stations. We have established family sexual violence in the main police stations, and I'm still working to go into the districts where the police stations are to have those family sexual violence units set up to give easy access to the women and children out there. When the survivors come to FSVU, first and foremost, we make sure that the survivors are heard. We have a space for them, so they come in and we ensure they feel comfortable, especially to speak to our officers about what is bothering them. Sometimes we receive survivors who are sick and cannot speak or even talk with us, or who cannot remember what had happened to them. Some of them, they're very, very traumatized of what had happened to them. They don't want to speak to anybody. They would just sit and listen or stay into the space. So we respect their rights. In order for us to give the utmost support to the survivor, it's very important that all those services are coordinated properly. And we make it our business to liaise and coordinate well with our partner stakeholders in the community so that the survivor is protected and well taken care of together as partners. Safe house, the clinics, the courts, the counselors, we all work together.
The offices are spread through Papua New Guinea, sometimes the only government presence in remote areas.
Because of the type of geography and the size of population that we have from different provinces have their own challenges. And with what we are doing, coordinating our office on the ground, it's very challenging, especially when they need help. It's very, very tough in Papua New Guinea, especially to attend complaints, policing. In some places like in Daru or Kiunga, they patrol most of the time. They go up the upstream, the river, to attend to complaints, even to get the perpetrator arrested. So our officers out there in the provinces, they have adjusted themselves to make sure the survivor have easy access to our police service. In Bulolo, our FSB officers, there is no safe house. The victims coming from miles and miles from the mountainside or the riverside, coming for hours to access the service in the district. So our police officers, FSB staff, take them to their house, or sometimes they let them to stay in the house cook, and they share food with them and their children.
In a bid to fight the negative perception of the police being authoritative, the FSVUs have ensured their services are survivor-centered. That includes small steps like introducing this care package for women and girls in dire need, to big steps like designing the layout of the FSVUs with the survivor in mind. A separate entrance to ensure privacy, a ramp to cater for women with disabilities, a house wing for the survivors to rest while awaiting their turn, a play area for children to play in safely. The dream is to see the FSVUs fully equipped, properly resourced, formally recognized. But despite the progress made with the establishment of the FSVU, there are still many challenges.
Okay, the three things I would like to see improve in the next 10 years or so is Family Sexual Violence Unit is all established in the 22 provinces and 89 districts to give easy access to the victims out there. Secondly, they must be well equipped with resources to assist them to attend to those FSB cases. We'd like to change this approach where people say we are the enemies. So for FSBU, first and foremost, our approach to the victims more friendly approach, and to ensure the victims feel comfortable to approach us and talk to us.
Technology becomes an important ally in the fight against family and sexual violence. The One Talk Counseling Help Him line, PNG's first national telephone counseling service, links people to service providers such as the police, medical support, and safe houses.
Reaching the unreached through the telecommunication, that they can access service through the phone. So we act as an entry to helping the survivors to knowing where the services are available, having the knowledge, information of where the services are, providing crisis counseling. We do on-spot referrals, assisting them, directly referring them to where services are, with the partnership that we have with other service providers like the police, the family support centers, like the courts, the community leaders where there is no police available. That's how we see ourselves as the very vital part that we play in the country in terms of connecting the survivors to the existing referral services are available on the ground.
The helpline provides support to hundreds of people throughout the country every month. It's open 24/7 and calls within the digital network are free of charge. Since its launch, the hotline has received over 65,000 calls. Most of the calls were from NCD, Morobe, and the Highlands region. In 2020 alone, the counselors provided referral information and advice to over 11,000 callers. More than 3/4 of calls were from people identifying as survivors of FSV. Perpetrators made up 6% of these calls. The One Talk Counseling Helping Line maintains a directory of over 350 service providers countrywide to help the caller. While services are abundant in provinces like NCD, remote areas come with their struggle.
In terms of geographical locations, the challenge is that there are some services available, there are some services that are not available. So most of the time we heavily depend on the human rights defenders on the ground. We are able to connect to them, or sometimes we refer them to the pastors, because where the government services are not available, church are always there.
In this journey over the phone, the relationship develops, resulting in the counselor being emotionally invested in the well-being of the survivor through constant follow-ups.
Calls received by the counselors on a daily basis is like intimate partner violence, gender-based violence, or some socially related issues, child abuse cases. Number of calls we receive a day, and the types of services are the types of issues that have been presented. Most of the times we have seen that they're very stressful. They experience burnout, and they are also experiencing secondary trauma because of the type of issue that has been presented by the callers. And it is the responsibility of the senior staff to provide clinical assessment and provide necessary skills that is needed by the staff. So they continuously provide support for the survivor as well as to support themselves.
The helpline's database and information management system could form the backbone of collating data for various service providers.
Just one call, it can save a life. People lack the knowledge, lack the awareness of where the services are. So having this referral pathway and giving them the information, and when they are informed, they can make a firm decision, so they are aware to go and seek this service. So this is a very good service where it plays an important role in the country.
Close to Mount Hagen is the Ulgar Catholic Parish, a care center for vulnerable children forced out of their homes. Such faith-based organizations emerge as key partners, especially in remote or isolated areas where there is a vacuum of service providers. Stepping in, this particular parish provides refuge to children affected by violence.
Give him all good like I almost good tam good na behind sample time we plan by Johnny mol picking long play na almost lose ting long display one is something all experience him talking mol picking long no can story long negative one is something all believe na kam na me plus ingat recreation or ingat library staff go reading all good plus story book now all by help him all now all can read good all can study good. We can make one is something by all picnic and benefit come up good picnic of future all.
This small center and many others like it across the country provide invaluable support to strengthening the referral pathways.
Our job is to ensure that we deliver justice to our people. Our sector is focused in ensuring that we protect our families, we protect our communities, we protect our individuals, and we protect our women and young girls. That's our primary function.
A survivor has legal rights to protect themselves and their children from abuse. An interim protection order is one such civil law remedy. If a survivor is in danger and needs immediate protection, she can apply for an IPO from a village court or a district court. The court-issued order can restrain, restrict, and prohibit the behavior of the perpetrator to prevent further violence.
This is obtained urgently if you're faced with an assault and the fear is still out there. Then you know that you're going to be assaulted in the next 24 hours, 48 hours, the fear is still there. Once an IPO is obtained, the survivor and perpetrator can live in the same house. The IPO is there just to ensure that there is no violence. But if you're being habitual and you still do not respect and breach the IPO, then there's a very big problem. The orders are made in such a way that you are restrained from being in that same property. You have to live in another place because from past experiences, from the statement, from the evidence before the court, you are a habitual offender and the survivor is a high-risk survivor, so you cannot live in the same place.
The purpose of the referral pathways is to keep survivors safe and to support their choices, including if they decide to leave the abusive relationship, either temporarily or permanently. There is no fee for the application form, and a lawyer isn't required. There are agencies that assist in obtaining an order, like the Public Solicitor's Office that has created a specialized section to provide free legal support.
We bring the IPO form down to the district court. The magistrates hear the application. You do not require the defendant or the perpetrator to be present. The magistrate goes through the IPO, sees that there is evidence of an assault and an existing fear out there. The magistrate will go ahead and issue the orders, interim protection order, for 30 days, the maximum, and give a next date for the perpetrator to be present in court. It's effective. For an IPO, doesn't require the perpetrator or the defendant to be present in court. It's given automatically depending on the nature of the assault. After you get that IPO, you have to serve the orders on the perpetrator, and the perpetrator must be present in court in the next mentioned date to defend himself or herself, to say why the IPO should not be prolonged or why the IPO should be dismissed.
In case of a breach or continued perception of threat, the district court can issue a longer-term protection order too that lasts for a period of up to 2 years. In the Papua New Guinea justice system, the village court plays a crucial role. Intended to maintain peace and harmony in the community, these institutions serve 2/3 of the population living in rural areas. Like this village court in the outskirts of Port Moresby settles disputes through mediation in Pari and Taurama. Well accepted because of the familiarity of the magistrates, clerks, and peace officers, the village court fits into the life of local communities and becomes the first option for accessing justice.
And communication is easy. We speak our mother tongue more too. We're in the village, they can see us anytime, we're open. So anytime there's a problem, domestic violence, they can come to us. Magistrates or peace officers or the clerk.
Bayu is a female magistrate, a positive step towards the bastion being perceived as inclusive. Her presence is a powerful signal that the village courts are open and accessible, especially when it comes to incidents of family and sexual violence.
Simple as that. They are not police officers, they are peace officers. To maintain peace in the community. We didn't charge them. We didn't tell them to do community work or DACA because it was their first time. We told them, you want good behavior bond, what you will do, you will assist our peace officers, maintain peace and quiet and harmony in the community.
The fine balancing between custom and common law is evident in its approach, where the emphasis is on changing behavior rather than meting out punishment.
The mentality is gradually changing. It's not a domestic issue anymore. There are laws in place because of the awareness and TV and pamphlets and groups that come and talk to us. The village is gradually changing its perception. Our custom, especially when bride price is given, men used to have the mentality that it's right to beat his wife. But now, after the regulation, perception is changing. It's not an accepted behavior anymore.
Village courts have the power to issue a preventive order or an interim protection order in case of domestic violence. The village court can refer certain cases to a district court. If a breach of the order has occurred, the matter must be reported to police where it can be prosecuted as a criminal offense in the district court.
I've asked our sector to refocus our energies right down to the village. And that's why, as a sector, we have adopted the village court system as our flagship. We want to really go down to the villages and work with our system. Our system is the village court. They're already there. That's the agent of the law and justice sector. They're all throughout the country, 1,680 village courts throughout the country. Now, when you look at the district courts, very few. National court, very few. So we are collaborating with the police, the corrections, the public prosecutor, the public solicitor, the older sector group. We want to go down and support the village courts so that our people can easily access justice at that first court. So we want to help our magistrates to deliver services more efficiently. We want to help our clerks. We want to help our peace officers.
Village courts jurisdictions are only to mediate or to hear cases when there's an argument or physical assault. But when it comes to rape or abduction or torture, that is beyond the village court's jurisdiction, so we advise National Police to assist. The challenges that we faced as a village court official, the number of officials that we have is only 11 of us, which is 6 magistrates, 1 clerk and 4 peace officers. Community is more than 8,000 SA. Pari Village Court also covers Taurama area where the army barracks is, and then it will go right around Tuna Bay area and then all the way to Taurama Bay area. So it's almost about 20 square kilometers.
Despite the logistical challenges, the village court provides a mechanism for survivors to swiftly access protection, which is particularly important in remote areas where access to police, district court, and other services is not easy. One of the most important agencies in the complex criminal justice system is the Family and Sexual Offense Unit within the Office of Public Prosecutor. Established in 2012 in response to rising cases of family and sexual violence, this is a specialized legal unit of prosecutors.
We would have lawyers who would focus more on prosecuting these family and sexual violence cases so that there would be more specialization in that area given the different laws and rules of practice that have to be observed when dealing with these types of cases. In PNG's context, it is very significant because it allows us, the prosecutors, to have a bit more focus on the nature of the cases that are coming into our office. So lawyers are able to know what to do as soon as a FSV case is received, identify what sort of witnesses are involved or victims, survivors of those types of cases. We're able to identify that if there are children involved, there are special ways in which we have to handle interviews that we conduct with them, and as opposed to if we were dealing with adult survivors or victims, how do we go about in assisting them, giving them the best assistance we can give, particularly explaining to them the importance of their role in helping us to prosecute their cases successfully as much as possible. So the significance really lies with the way we deal with the people that are affected by the FSV crimes that happened around us. What usually would be the most common challenges? The first thing is the lack of information, not being aware of what the role of the OPP is, and not being able to understand why they need to come through this process.
Withdrawal of cases, non-appearance of survivors and witnesses, compensation, threats from perpetrators are some of the contributing factors. The backlog of cases owing to limited number of courts means that as a case can take up to 4 years, adding to a survivor's frustration. But the process, involving many stakeholders, is required to build an airtight case against the perpetrator.
It comes through the committal courts, okay? So we have the initial investigations, and then the file is given to the police prosecutors. They go before the committal court. They present the evidence, and then the committal magistrate's function is basically to assess whether that evidence is strong enough to send this person up to the national court to stand trial. So the committal magistrate does not have the power to decide whether the perpetrator is guilty or not. Their role is to weigh the strength of the evidence. If it's sufficient, then they do what is called a committal notice. And based on that committal, the file is then transferred to the OPP. So the police prosecutors bring the court file up to our office with the notice of committal by the magistrate, and then we register it now as a national court case. So once that process is done, the court file is then allocated to the respective units. In this case, if it's now sent to the FASO unit, it comes through me as the team leader. I then look at the file, look through the evidence, and then I allocate to the officers within my unit to prepare the case for trial. So there's investigations, committal court, prosecution, and then if this person is found guilty, then he goes through the sentencing process where his punishment is given, and then we now hand him over to the CIS, which is the people who look after them whilst they are in prison.
At the core of a successful prosecution lies the survivor or witness statement. They are often the only or primary evidence that could lead to the laying of charges. Nearly 50% of the cases received by this team are related to child abuse. The difficulty of preparing such vulnerable witnesses also contributes to the delay in judicial progression.
We've got a child interview room, which is down the back of the office, the corridor. So in that room, it's a more user-friendly environment. We've got couches in there, a little carpet, there's toys and reading books and stuff. So if we're having an interview, we take the children into that room to make them feel comfortable so that we can get them to get used to us in terms of talking to them nicely, telling them that, oh, this is my job and I'm here to help you. I know what happened to you or what you've reported to your mom and dad or the police. I'd like you to tell me about that story. We don't usually do one-off interviews. We have to do 2 or 3 interviews again. The first one may be just for introductory purposes. We get to know the child, and then the second interview, we basically try to explain why we need them to come and help us do this particular case in court. On the third occasion might be when we can then get them to tell us their story. And by then, usually they would be more relaxed and comfortable.
It is critical to ensure that people with disabilities have equal access to all of the referral pathway services listed, just like everybody else. But effective implementation continues to be one of the biggest challenges. 15% of Papua New Guinea's population has a disability. The impact of violence is felt hardest by these groups who are most at risk of vulnerability. Women and girls with disabilities face double and sometimes triple discrimination due to disability, gender, and poverty. They are twice as likely to be victims of family and sexual violence as other women.
Women face double discrimination, such as the fact that they're a woman, and it's even more pronounced when they have an impairment as well. Studies show that women and girls with disabilities are 2 to 3 times more likely to be victims of physical and sexual abuse than women without disabilities. Women with disabilities experience physical and sexual violence from intimate partners, caregivers, the people who are meant to be, assisting them. I think when we consider that they also face different forms of violence from women who don't have, disabilities, women without disabilities. So some forms of this violence that they experience could be the acts of withholding medication or assistance, the fact that because they cannot afford, the cost of medication itself, they are unable to get that support.
These women struggle to access basic services such as education, health, work, and social support. And when they experience violence, they face practical environmental and social barriers, from transport to cost, and being met with negative attitudes of staff who may not believe their story or know how to communicate with them.
The absence of any data to really show, what's really happening. Some of the barriers, they include like the infrastructure, and it could be also the attitude of the people who are providing a particular service and how they interact or engage with the person or the woman with the disability. And then it's also the institutional and participation barriers. The policies that support the inclusion of persons with disability and how they might be able to access the different services. And then when I talk about the attitude, it's the attitude of it could be the police officer or the health professional. Are they trained to be able to assist the person when they go to them for help? We have a logo or motto, nothing about us without us. So when it comes to designing policies or practices or procedures, we would like to be involved in the decision-making level because we know what our needs are, and we would like them to be reflected in the way the services are provided to persons with disabilities.
Now service providers are working to build support by creating enabling environments that welcome and support all women, including those with disabilities. Wheelchair access, having a sign language interpreter, providing extra assistance like transportation for people with physical impairments. These are just some of the ways of supporting survivors with disabilities. The growing public outrage over family and sexual violence cases in Papua New Guinea has brought the attention on the importance of engaging men to be a part of the solution as a strategy to prevent violence. Male advocacy programs are being rolled out across the country by the CIMC Family and Sexual Violence Action Committee. These initiatives are overseen and supported by women's movements.
Even though it's the 20th century, but we still have that mentality that men are more powerful than women and women are less to men. There is always a reason to blame the woman, even though she may be right or be wrong, but then they use religious excuses, religious cultural excuses to inflict fear and violence on women.
And it's been almost 2 decades since human rights defender walk Mipla make him come. Now Mipla looking plenty all man only Arim talk now sends him, and they gave us the space to talk as women leaders in the community so that our voice can be heard and it can be trickle down right down to the communities where like women don't have their voices being heard. But it's not overnight thing.
Before,
Mipla merino sabe lo rights lo mipla lo access through lo court system. Na two mipla thingos before culture lo mipla. Emosem man put in pay lo mipla. Mipla boy blo all man now. But time mipla sim all this law pamphlets na kaino sem na go educate him all lo place. Man line him new plus something. Meritu line him new plus something. Now all clear. One map all back sim help him. So man by sawe na meritu by sawe na tupla wante by respecting tupla. Na time tupla equip wantem sawe pikinini blo tupla by line him good la passing lo papa mama. Na now all sawe finish now. Mipla looking all young pla man all chains. All help him all mama lo come kiss him, come lo court, go lo house.
Male advocacy, it's not a perpetrators program. It's designed by women so that male advocates work with women's organizations or women leaders. Male advocacy is part and parcel of a prevention strategy that's used to address women's human rights and gender equality. It will work. If we use it to create perpetrators program, then it will lose its essence and the concepts that were developed by these women leaders.
The idea is to first shape and mold community male advocates before they reach out to their peers. Despite the existence of these important services, there continues to be many challenges to effectively responding to family and sexual violence. People with disabilities experience many barriers in accessing these services, and many of these services are not available in remote parts of the country. Even in provincial hubs, referral pathway providers experience hardships in delivering services to survivors due to many obstacles like lack of funding and resources, lack of infrastructure and safe transport, environmental disasters, and tribal conflicts. There are a number of emerging programs taking place to prevent FSV and build a stronger commitment in the country to effectively resource these vital services.
So when you see that there is an obstacle in the community or when there is an issue in the community, you will see that it affects the community in a very big way.
This includes male advocacy for women's human rights prevention programs, information dissemination, and training on access to justice for advocates to assist survivors. These programs require coordination between the law and justice sector agencies, health, education, and civil society groups, women's groups, and churches.
And so, in my view, when we address that kind of issue, and particularly in terms of family sexual violence or just violence generally, everybody must be involved. From the parents, to the community, to the leadership, to the different actors within the community like health, education, law and order. We all must be working together to deliver a service that people begin to respect each other and they're able to live peacefully with each other. Our approach to development in the communities and the villages must be an holistic approach. We cannot go there as an individual agency of state. It's about awareness, it's about educating our people to accept responsibility, educating our people to know that this is wrong, that you can't condone violence. It's about a mindset change, and for me that's where the investment should be. And that's where we need to begin with our young people in schools. Teach them that violence is unacceptable. And for me, if we can be able to train the next generation of Papua New Guineans to think like that, this country will change. That's why we're looking for partners, we're looking for friends. And I know that there are a lot of good people out there, there are a lot of good organizations out there who are doing a lot of good work. We just need to partner with them and we strengthen the work that they do. And I think we can turn things around. I have a lot of hope for this country, and I know that our people, seeing the responses to the community and through the social media, our people are fed up. And that's the good thing, that the rest of the nation is against this evil.
If you or someone you know is at risk, please call the One Talk Counseling Helping Line on 7150-8000. They can also help you work out your options on where to go in your community for help. In an emergency, go to your nearest police station. or if you need medical help, go to the closest health center. Look out for your loved ones if you think they need help. Remember, you might be the only support they have. You can support a survivor by telling them about the referral pathways, the helpline, and helping them identify safe places in their community where they can go in an emergency and how they can get there. Listen to a survivor without judgment, and don't blame the survivor for the abuse.